some of the strongest people in our lives are the ones that are secretly, silently suffering. We always think, oh, they're fine. They don't need us. They have an army of people they could be talking to. And that's just not the case. And so I always am reaching out to people and trying to connect because I know what it's like to be alone and to be suffering and to grieve in silence.
Welcome to the Impact Effect podcast. I am here with Stacy Scarsella, and as you know, it's another episode where Jim Morris is fired up because she is an executive producer. She's a CEO, a founder, keynote speaker. She's doing it all, and she has a message to share with you that's going to impact your world with her words. So please let me welcome Stacy to the podcast.
Thank you, Jim.
I am so excited. We had an amazing conversation right before this. You got so many things going on in the world, impacting people, showing up, throwing events, advertising, CEO, mom, like, let's go, doing it all. But in true Impact Effect style, I always ask our guest, what is that moment in your life that's impacted you the most, had the most positive impact on you and your future?
I love that question. And I think what's really hard about answering that question is there isn't one moment, right? But I thought through it, and I think I have my one moment. First, the very first time I kind of had an aha moment, I was diagnosed with Marfan syndrome. I was 25, and I was told, you can't have kids, you may not live till you're 40, all of these like heavy hitting kind of diagnosis with a heart condition. That didn't really stop me. And I said, okay. I mean, I was sad, of course. I was kind of shell-shocked at 25 to hear that I wouldn't be able to have kids, which, by the way, I have 2 kids. So, that's a whole nother story for another day. But what really kind of shook me is when I was 33, I had just had my second son. My best friend committed suicide. And that is something that was the impact. Not the heart condition, not all of the moments that, kind of lead you to where you are. It's when my very closest friend, the person I did my 20s with, I was in her wedding, she was in my wedding. She delivered my first son, incredible health professional, singer-songwriter, gorgeous, married to a very successful man, had her own son. She had really some hard demons, she had some demons she was dealing with and she left this world. And so after that moment, my whole life changed, because when you think of death and loss and grief, you think of somebody older. You think of your grandparents or, of somebody in their 60s, 70s, 80s. I don't know. When you're young, you don't really think of death until it hits you hard in your face, somebody your same exact age, and especially suicide, which is so hard to grasp. And she called me the night that she died. And I was dealing with a brand new baby who was having a lot of challenges because my youngest was anemic. He was premature because I had some health conditions, obviously with my heart and other things that were kind of leading up to his birth. And we survived, the birth, which that's a whole nother story too. But the main thing that I think I want to talk about is, how do you take something like that and move forward? Right. And so, after 11 years now, it's been 11 years, I've worked through a lot of that grief, from all the stages of grief, and it's not easy. And I think it's worth talking about because I haven't ever openly talked about it on a podcast or on stage because it's so personal. And it's like, when people hear that, they don't know what to say back. They're like, oh goodness, like you're quiet.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I do have a question.
Yes.
You said she called you. Did you pick up the call or did you
I
miss it?
did not
You missed
pick up
it.
the call.
Okay.
Because I was in my own hell.
Yeah.
I had a 2-year-old and a brand new baby, and my husband was traveling for work, and I was sick. I had bronchitis. I had gotten sick in the hospital because Nico, my youngest, he was very, He was little. I mean, 4 weeks, 5 weeks old when she passed. So it was a lot.
Wow. When you're talking about it now, you're
Yeah.
not pouring out crying. You can have, you
I
have
can talk
clarity
about
in
it.
your words.
Yes.
How did you get to this place
Oh,
today?
goodness. That's a road, right? It's a long journey of anger, sadness, crying. I did not go to her funeral, which, do I regret that? Yes and no, but you can't go back and make a decision, or you can't go back and change something that happened in the past, because the person I was in that moment is not who I am today. And
Why didn't you go to the funeral?
my husband was leaving for Rome for 5, 6 weeks, and my whole plan was to go and stay in our house in Europe with my 2 kids during my maternity leave. I would have more support with his family than I did in Boston, where we were living at the time, and I could not travel by myself. I didn't think I had you know, the I don't know. I had just never traveled with 2 children,
Yeah.
let alone a 4 week old.
It's hard. I got 2 kids, and
And since then,
I did
I've
not take a lot of speaking gigs last year because of travel.
And so you're in it, you get it. Like when you have a newborn and a 2 year old, not even that. I think I was running away. I refused to accept the fact that she was gone. So I kind of ignored it. I went to Rome. I posted on, back then, I was posting on Facebook and, oh my gosh, I'm having a great time. I lost a lot of friends during that time because they thought I handled it incorrectly, right? I didn't handle grief correctly. I didn't post pictures, or sad quotes or whatever you're supposed to do while you're grieving. I didn't do that. I didn't know how to grieve my best friend who, not to mention the immense guilt I felt about not answering that phone call, right? Was that the last phone call that she made? Was it the reason that she couldn't go on, that I didn't answer? Who knows, right? The what ifs and all of the crazy kind of things the tricks your mind plays on you.
Assumptions.
So, assumptions,
and without
right?
the truth or the path to find the truth. You're creating that yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Do you think you did those things because that's how you were trying to navigate that grief?
Possibly. I think I was in survival mode a little bit as well. And by being in Italy, I mean, my comprehension of Italian is like I'm at like 90%. My husband speaks Italian and my kids are dual citizens and my husband's Italian citizen. And Italian's an important part of our culture and our household. But I don't speak Italian as well as I should. So I could not communicate to friends and family in Italy what I was feeling. So even more, I was delaying that grief process. So when I got back from Italy from my maternity leave and went back to work, I didn't know how to cope. So what did I do? I threw myself into work. I travel, I'm on shoots, I'm working with creatives and directors. And at that time, I was in house at a corporation because I was, before I started Plaid Pony, I did work for, corporations. And that's what I did. So I just buried my grief deeper and deeper every single day. And it wasn't until, about 3 or 4 months later that I really realized that I was depressed. And I had really some sadness that was starting to creep in different ways, agitation, anxiety. And that's where I realized, wow, I got to deal with this. I don't know what this means. And I started building my business at night. Why? I have no idea how and why I did that, but it was an outlet for me to say, okay, wow, like we get one life and I have no idea how much time I have left. And I think that's the biggest impact moment of Katie's death, was just reminding me how fragile life is, regardless of how someone passes. It is the end of that person in today's world, right? And whatever your spiritual beliefs are, and the other thing is, it really shook me because I am Catholic, and it is a lot to go through questioning your, religious stance and what you believe in when somebody so kind, loving, beautiful takes their own life. So there was so many things I had to unpack. And so it started first with running away. Then it started burying myself in other things. And then it gave me the power to leave my job and start something that I wanted to do and had wanted to do for years and years and years. I just didn't have the guts to do it. And that was leave my corporate job to have more time with my children because I wasn't seeing my kids a lot. I was working. I was traveling. I was on a shoot. I would come home and my kids would be in bed, right? Because they're young. Then Annie would put them to sleep. And so I saw them sleeping a lot, but that was it. And so, yeah, I quit my job when my children were 3 years old and 1 year old, 1 year old, 3 years old, and moved my family across the country. We lived in Airbnbs for five months and bounced between LA, Austin, Boston, New York, Miami. Wherever I was working, I brought my kids with me. We shipped our cars to Austin, Texas, and put all of our big belongings in storage in New Jersey. But I don't think I would have had the power to do all of that if I didn't feel like I had nowhere else to go, right? So it gave me this, whatever you want to call it, it gave me the launch I needed. And something to say about my friendship, it was a very deep friendship, because over the years, and obviously in your 20s, you go through a lot of changes, whether it's marriage or new jobs. I graduated college with her. She graduated med school. We did a lot of those natural celebration moments in life together. And every morning during my commute, I would talk to her. So that's another reason our friendship had really blossomed into something incredible is she was my person, right? She was my rock. So what happens when your rock goes away? And that shakes your world. So something she used to say is, "Oh, Stacy, you're going to be the next Tyra Banks." She would say that all the time. And I'm like, "What do you mean? No, what? I could never be on stage. I could never be on a podcast. Even podcasts weren't a thing back then. But, I could never be in front of people. I'm a producer. I'm behind the scenes. I work with incredible people. I make their visions come to life." And I think, even, 15 years ago when she was telling me that, I am celebrating her now because I'm living her dream. For me, I'm living it.
Let's go. Come on. Let's go. It's interesting that you bring that up because as we sit here today, I did a TED Talk last year and I talked about having someone in your life that pushes you kind of from 50 to 51%, right?
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine from Boston that I grew up with, who I talk about in my TED Talk, he's actually flying in tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
And he's the person that pushed me that 1%.
That's incredible. And Boston is where we were living and that's where all of this happened. And I was there 15 years. So I have a special tie to Boston. So it's really cool.
I'm from there.
Oh, wait, did we talk about this?
We haven't.
Oh
no,
my
yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
My kids were born there.
Yep. So,
Wow.
But it's interesting that you say that because he's always been someone in my life that's like, you're gonna go change the world. You're gonna do this. You're gonna do this. And in those moments where you feel like you are not navigating that or you need that extra push, he was always there for me.
Yeah.
And it's so great to hear how you're stepping into this calling that your friend was initially pushing and providing information and little nuggets that you're going to go do this someday.
Totally.
And you're doing it right now. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much.
You had talked about, over the course of time, growing up in your 20s, finding identity, things like that. How important is human connection and those relationships for you in your 20s, in your 30s, as you continue to navigate life?
It's so important. And, something that was really cool when we first met is I've never been someone that has these big girl groups. I don't go on girl trips. I don't have this tribe of women I've been friends with for 25 years, and I don't know if that's just because I've moved around a lot, because I'm intimidating. I mean, I'm a woman. I'm 6'3". I kind of float in my own world. But Katie and I had connected, and she had that same kind of energy. And so we brought together this incredible group of women in our 20s, and we started throwing dinner parties and just bringing women together. And I'm still friends with a lot of those women, which is amazing. But that community, a lot of that group we started, I mean, we still celebrate Katie. We go to her grave every year, and we keep her spirit alive with us, because that's, the community we started gave me that kind of look at, wow, I'm really good at bringing women together, and men too, like groups together. And community is what really makes the spark in me alive. It really ignites the spark inside of me. And I cannot stress the community now more than ever, because people are living behind, a monologue, right? You push out your text, you voice message, you push out your idea and walk away, right? And then wait for that text to come back, or that email or voice memo to come back to you. And last night I was at an event, and it was so incredible to just connect to people in real life and to touch, hug, connect with humanity, which is why, I still produce these events. And yes, I cannot stress community enough, because if I did not have that community through the 10 years, 11 years, it will be 12 years this September of her passing. And we have this deep bond because we went through trauma together, right? And so anytime we're really having a hard time, and I say we, any of those women I was mentioning, we can call and we pick up immediately, because that call, we're like, ooh, they need us, because we went through that trauma together. And, and I think mental health, and that's why I'm such an advocate for mental health, some of the strongest people in our lives are the ones that are secretly, silently suffering, because we always think, oh, they're fine. They don't need us. They have an army of people they could be talking to. And that's just not the case. And so I always am reaching out to people and trying to connect, because I know what it's like to be alone and to be suffering and to grieve in silence. And what's really fascinating about grief in general is that year we had 5 people in our family pass away. And I question myself all of the time, like, why do I celebrate her anniversary, of her passing or her death, more than my grandfather or my father-in-law, who I was very, very close to, or, the aunt that passed, and why her? And because I don't remember the days they died. And it's weird, because you think you would, but it was, I think, having that community connection with somebody your own age, and when they're gone, that shakes you. And so now every September, I grieve all of those people on the same day. So it's not just her I'm grieving that day. It's like it hits me. So I always make sure that day I don't have anything major planned, because I give myself grace to just be sad or happy or whatever I'm feeling that day. Because there are stages of grief, right? And it doesn't just, there are moments where I'm listening to she was a singer-songwriter. There are moments when I'm listening to a song of hers and I'm in tears and I can't move because I'm so sad, but also happy, right? And so I'm not crying right now, but that's because I've learned how to express different feelings at different times. And right now I'm happy for the celebration of her life and why I'm here today talking about it. And it starts with community, and that connection, that human connection, and having that bond that is so strong. And you shouldn't be scared to have the bond, knowing that, okay, life is not forever. At least this in our current body is not forever. So don't be scared of having that connection with someone. Embrace the moments you have, whether it's 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 years, 5 years, 50 years, and living in that moment with that person.
I used to say a quote growing up a ton: live fast, die young. Mm-hmm. And I was misrepresented with how I looked at that quote, and a majority of other people looked at it. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was basically lean into those moments, like live fast.
Yes.
Right? Not just running through different things, but like really moving through those moments and then die young, meaning like die off the things that aren't those moments.
Totally.
So that way you can have presence and you can focus in those moments.
Yeah.
And as you were saying that, I was just thinking through, I'm like, wow, it feels a lot similar to as you share your story. You talked about human connection. You talked about having a deep relationship with your community and folks because of you went through that trauma. It allowed you to bond. One of the things that I often talk about when I define human connection is that authentic approach to connecting with someone over shared experiences, but also shared moments of heightened emotion. And I think that relates back to what you're talking about, where that emotion was so heightened and other people felt that. And then there was that bonding and that rapport and that true community and connection. So what you're saying makes so much sense. And as I think about it, and as I think about some scenarios that I've been in with heightened emotions or traumas, it all really comes back to having that other person that really feels into your situation because they've either been there through an experience or they felt an emotion around something similar.
Totally.
As you were talking earlier about children, and I want to go back to that, and I'm glad we're talking about your friend, but I really want to go back to that first thing you said, because you said it for a reason. You didn't think you'd have children, or it was going to be very difficult to have children. That really resonated with me because we had a daughter, Ellie, and then we lost 2 children. And then I almost lost my wife on the second child that we lost.
So sorry.
And I didn't want to have another child, right? And I was scared and I had fear. And my wife actually was like, I know my body. I know myself. It's going to be fine. We're going to do this. And we had our son. And as you were saying that, she showed me strength and courage and navigating fear in a way that I couldn't in those moments. Was there anybody that in your life that helped you navigate that fear? Because I'm sure you had to have some moment of fear when that doctor said you can't do this, or or it's going to be tragic, or it's going to, all these things that was no. Was there anybody in your life that pushed you through that to go and say, nope, I'm going to have children. I'm going to bring these amazing little tiny humans into the world?
Absolutely. And I mean, that's my husband for sure. I mean, I've been with my husband 23 years and we met in college, and he's my best friend and an advocate for not just, me as a mom, but I mean, when I built my business, going on, stages, I mean, he's always supporting me and just really that person that, says you got this. And we weren't even engaged to be nothing. I mean, we were boyfriend and girlfriend, I was 25 and I, was diagnosed, I found out I had this heart condition, and I told him, he said, okay, let's go figure it out. And I was like, well, we haven't even talked about this yet. Do you want kids? Like, why are we even talking about this when we're not in that space yet? Right. And he went with me to a bunch of high risk doctors to look at our options. And it was a really special time for us because it was fascinating, right? Because I wasn't even ready to even think about that. But if I did want to go down that journey and look at other ways to have children, what are our options? And so that process was really cool. And then 5 years later, I had kind of accepted, like, maybe I don't want kids, and he had said to me, I want to be with you regardless of, having children or not. And that was really cool. So
I can feel that.
yeah. And so he goes, we're going to travel the world and have an epic life together. We have each other, and I would choose you any day. And so that was pretty powerful. And that was before we were engaged. We dated 7 years. And, when you're young, you can rush into marriage, of course. But I loved living by myself and having my own apartment and my independence. And my family was a little worried. They were like, are you ever going to get married? And I'm like, does it matter? But yes, we did end up getting married, and we traveled the world for 5 years. And I kind of didn't really plan the first pregnancy. It just happened. And I've had to find a doctor, and I went to the doctor and I said, do I have to make a choice? You know, my body was still working. It was my heart that wouldn't be able to support the pregnancy in the third trimester. And they were like, no, I think you're good. You've been super healthy. You're an incredible, at the time I was a Zumba instructor.
Zumba, let's go. Throwing it back. Is that a thing still? It is,
I
right?
think it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I mean, I still do it. I still go to Zumba classes. They call it cardio dance at a lot of gyms now.
Cool.
Yeah, this was hot minute ago. I do that a lot. I'm like, why not? Let me go try this.
Yeah.
So I had been teaching Zumba, so I was in incredible shape. I was running every day. I did yoga. I did all the things, right? So I didn't realize, wow, okay, by doing all the things, my heart was in a really good place. And so, yeah, I was able to have my first son, Enzo, and it was amazing. And so, and also Katie was there and cut the umbilical cord and delivered Enzo, and it was a pretty special moment. And so,
What's your husband's name?
Dino,
Dino. Shout out to Dino. What a guy. What a stud.
he's pretty incredible. And so, yeah, I had Enzo. And then 2 years later, I was 16 weeks pregnant with my second, and I didn't know. And it was a surprise. And so I went back and I'm like, oh, piece of cake, we can do this again. And it wasn't a piece of cake. And yeah, it was a really hard pregnancy and walking bed rest and all the things. And my heart was a concern, but it was also, you know, other parts of the pregnancy, low amniotic fluid and just different things like that. And so, yeah, during the birth, Nico was an emergency induction, and my heart rate skyrocketed. His heart rate dipped to 4 beats a minute. So it was a pretty stressful delivery, and we almost both did not survive. Wow. So we made it. And that was the same year all those people died. So it, you know, in trauma, in something really dark, there's always some light. And I really do believe God does that, you know, gives you that little spark. And at his baptism, I gave a speech. It was December of that year, 2014. And it was about how beautiful, you know, my second son's birth and his meaning to life, and how powerful it can be. When you have so much darkness, there is still light.
100%. You seem like a very resilient woman.
You could say that.
Where do you think that comes from?
Definitely my parents. I have always been taught, is there blood? There's no blood. You're good. And I will never forget that, right? I'm like, oh, there's no blood. We're good. And, you know, complacency breeds laziness. And my parents were always like, oh, you have an A? Well, what else can you do? You know, so whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it taught me tenacity, right? Yeah. How to be better, how to never become complacent, how to always learn and grow and do the next level, whatever that means to you. So I definitely give that to my parents. And my dad's written 2 children's books or parenting books, I should say. And it's funny because, you know, it feels like a long lecture to me when I read the books, but he's an inspiration for sure. My mom, you know, very, very high up in the government space, computer science engineer, powerhouse in the 80s, you know, so I had very inspirational parents that led me to believe that anything's possible.
It's such an interesting perspective when you hear anything's possible.
Yes.
And I truly believe that impact and that consistency of hearing that allows you to break barriers.
Absolutely.
And when you break those barriers, that's when I believe you start to create impact, right?
Yes.
Impact affects my brand, my conferences, my events, my coaching, consulting. That is the slogan, break barriers to create impact.
Yes.
And you need those reminders, and you need those little, it's not, you know, a good friend of mine, Dr. Justin Mosley, he had taught me that it's not information we're seeking, it's insights in a lot of ways. And I believe that's such a powerful insight that you just shared. So if there's anything that you take away from this episode is go back and watch it for insights and definitely the insight that she just shared with us. Now, as we wrap up the podcast and the conversation, I want to talk about you as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to ensure that your kids today have and are gaining these insights to continue to break barriers, to continue to change the world, to continue to step into their calling, where they want to go, how they want to show up?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you can share with the audience? Because we do have a lot of parents, a lot of folks reach out and actually talk about, I listened to this episode and I'm having my son or my daughter listen to it, or I'm sharing this on the car ride to work. And that's why we keep it around 35, 40 minutes, because a lot of people also have shared that they put this on in the car for their commute. What insights can you share about how you're maybe parenting that the audience can take and pull from and maybe position to their children and their future?
I love that. I am very involved with my children, and that's a huge why. That's my why. And so I take them to school every day, even though they could ride their bike, they could take the bus. A big reason I started my company was to give myself that space with them. And so when I drop them off, obviously I'm not with them this morning, but that's my partner. I mean, that's what we do, is one of us is there with them. And if you have that luxury and you have those moments in the car and you're dropping them off at whatever activity or school, being really careful with your words in that moment they leave the car, because you're setting them up for the day. So I draw mantra cards with them every day, and they roll their eyes. I have teenagers, they're like, gosh, mom, this is so lame. And and sometimes we pray, and we set the intention for the day. What is your goal for the day? What's your space? What do you want from today? And, as it's uncomfortable, sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's what we need, because we had a very stressful, tearful morning trying to get out of the house on time, remembering the projects and homework and all the things. But the mornings can be really hard when you're a parent. And so just taking that deep breath. And I always, I've been teaching the kids since they were little about box breathing and taking that big breath to help your nervous system calm itself. And when they get out of the car, I look at them and say two things: be kind and try your best. And I've been saying that since they were 5 years old, getting out of the car, going off to kindergarten. As long as you try your best, if you have an F, fine, we'll work through that. Right now, and 1 minute forward is all you have, right? And so if you're kind, you're going to open so many doors. And if you're trying your best, that's all once that door is open, you have it. You're trying your best, whatever that looks like. And, I do think it's great to, make A's and, achieve all of the awards and do that. I mean, that's how I was raised. But in today's society, we are in a different world than when I grew up. And I think it's important to think about just the basics of humanity and being kind. And I receive messages from their teachers, and it just makes me cry how amazing the people they're turning into, because my simple words are impacting them on so many levels. The teachers are like, oh, your kids are so kind. They did this, this, or this today. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, it's actually working. But it takes years and years and years of repetition of like putting it in their brain, right? And flexing those mental muscles of, wow, anything's possible. I just have to be kind and try my best. And I always say kind, not nice, because I want them to really feel it from inside and push that out to whoever they're speaking to or whoever they're working with. And then I tell them, have empathy for what that person's going through. They'll say, oh, that teacher's the worst. I'm like, well, put yourself in that teacher's shoes. Maybe they're having a really hard day, or they have a lot of kids to deal with, or whatever, especially middle school, right? It's a tough place to be. So yeah, the morning is important. And then when they come home, same thing, receiving them with kind words, loving, hug them, because they just carried all of that all day, right? Inside of them. And now they're coming back home in their safe space and hugging them and giving them that safe space. So I don't start with, where's your homework? What's happening? Okay, you have to unload the dishwasher. Yes, all of that needs to happen, but not in the first 30 seconds. And if I can pick them up from the bus, that's what I do, because there is an amazing window of time that happens between the minute they leave the school, whatever that looks like, to getting into their car or the front door. There is a small window of time where they will tell you everything. It's about 30 seconds. And if you don't capture that window, it's closed. That little glimpse into their day, it closes. And so that's another reason I still pick up the kids and I'm there. All my friends are like, why would you do that? They can ride the bus. They can, drive, take a bike home, whatever. And I'm like, no, there's such an amazing moment in the very beginning of the day and the end of the day. And then, and the last thing I would say is having dinner. So those are the three things I try to do every single day with my children when I'm in town, is to make the most of those, because dinner is, we go around the room and they know this, your highs and lows, your peaks and valleys. And I always say your low makes your high even higher. They're like, oh, I don't have a low. And I said, yeah, you could have a scab on your knee that annoyed you. Your low doesn't have to be super low, but it just puts things in perspective. So yeah, I hope they carry that, because those are the things I do every day. The little details.
Wow. That was a masterclass for me.
Oh, and I know you have young ones,
kids.
and every phase is different. Having a mama mentor or a parent mentor is also helpful, right? Have somebody that has older children in your life, because then you can call them and be like, is this normal? Yes, it's normal, because as they get older, there's always going to be hard things that happen. They just get harder and harder and harder because they're more real, right?
Totally.
So
2 things I want to leave you with, if you're listening still to the end of this episode. Kindness is king. And then also focusing on that time spent before you send the kids off to school in the morning, but also that time spent before you get them home and back into their safe place. I think that's so important. I hear a lot about talking to them in the morning, sending them on the bus, but I don't hear a lot about that moment, that micro miracle moment, I'm going to call it, a micro miracle moment after school before you get them home into that front door safe place. What a masterclass, Stacy. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Jim. This was
just pouring it
wonderful.
out. Yeah, this has been amazing.